characteristics of God that is most well known is compassion. Many Christians, I believe, have the impression that this compassion is only expressed in the Newer Testament or Christian scriptures. Nothing could be further from the truth. In Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7, when Moses asks to see God face to face, God declared his name with these words. Then the Lord passed in front of Moses and called out, the Lord, God, is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and devotion and faithfulness, maintaining loving devotion to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin. In Isaiah 49:15, when speaking to Israel's desolation, God declares, "Can a woman forget her nursing child or lack compassion for the son of her womb? Even if she could forget, I will not forget you." We read in Psalm 103, verses 3 to 4, "He who forgives all your iniquities and heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit and crowns you with loving devotion and compassion." God cannot do anything apart from his compassionate nature. Even judgment is a result of his compassion. And for those who still think the Hebrew scriptures or the Older Testament are all wrath and judgment, and the Newer Testament is all love and singing kumbaya, I encourage you to take another look at Revelation, and even of many of Jesus's own words. But back to compassion. Israel is teeming with organizations that show compassion and provide assistance to those in need. And not only to Israelis, but this compassion has resulted in Israel being the first team on the ground in any world disaster. Or their technologies such as drip irrigation, or creating water out of air, or desalination plants, that is exported readily to countries in need and often at no cost. I believe this is because, whether outwardly religious or not, the Bible and its instruction are foundational in Jewish society. Today, we're going to focus on an extraordinary organization with an extraordinary leader. Ruth Guggenheim is the Director of Interfaith Relations for World Emunah. She is a mother of 3 and grandmother so far of 6. She moved to Israel 4 years ago from Baltimore, Maryland. Bridges for Peace Canada and World Emunah recently partnered together to raise support for this organization in an on-like challah bake. Challah is the braided bread that Jewish people use every Friday night to celebrate the Sabbath. Working with Ruth was an incredible treat. She is dynamic, energetic, warm, and inspiring. The Proverbs 31 verse I have chosen to describe Ruth is verse 20. She spreads out her palms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy.
And he will gather in the dispersed ones of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. The sages teach that the world stands upon 3 pillars, on the Torah, on service to God, and on kindness to others. It is these pillars that Emunahs Mission was developed to fulfill. Through them, we have transformed the lives of God's children, raising them up in their faith and settling the Jewish people back in their God-given homeland. Emunah believes in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and passes on these teachings to the children of Israel. Emunah runs over 160 projects in 73 cities across Israel. Connect with the people of Israel through Emunah. The people who have experienced years of persecution and destruction. They are hurting and need comfort and healing. For over 80 years, Emunah has helped hundreds of thousands of Israeli families break the cycle of destruction and despair that has been experienced from generation to generation. Emunah helps them heal. We have faith that with the right tools and support, they can break the cycle of devastation and build the chain of hope. With the necessary support, love, and care, Emunah can help the orphaned, abused, widowed, and survivors look toward a brighter future, one where they are able to transform their lives for the better. With over 10,000 children and families served daily at Emunah, every day is a blessing, turning faith into action, fulfilling God's word. Now, it's your turn. We invite you to join the Emunah family and be a part of prophecy.
Ruth, it is such a privilege to have you join us today from Jerusalem. And I'm excited that people will hear more about the organization that you work for, World Emunah. So first of all, can you tell us about the mission of World Emunah and how did it start and how has it grown?
That's a big order.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And it is truly a blessing to be on your show and to be speaking to you from Jerusalem, from Yerushalayim. So thank you very, very much. Emunah actually started in the mid-1930s as an organization of religious Jewish women who wanted to bring children from Eastern Europe. When they saw what was starting to change between 1935 and 1940, they realized that if they could try to bring children to Israel and give them safety and put them into shelters, that God willing, they would survive what was going to happen out. So they brought hundreds of children to the land and they kept them here as a safety measure, hoping that their parents would be able to join them. Now, some parents were able to and some obviously weren't. So from that beginning, though, is when Emunah began looking to make sure that the needy, the disadvantaged, the orphan, the abused children always had shelter and housing. And then the next level would have the support necessary, the counseling necessary, and the education. So Emunah evolved over 80 years from literally being a home just for refugees to giving education. We have 4 large schools in Israel. We have a college in Israel. We have the largest crisis counseling centers throughout Israel that help to maintain not only the children, but families in need. So it just kept growing. And what a lot of people don't realize, we have over 160 projects in Israel. And again, the mission is to support with faith the children of Israel and assure that they have a good future.
Wow.
A stable future.
Wow. That is so inspiring. And I've seen some of the videos of what work you do, and it's very moving and touching and really amazing. So how did you become involved in the organization?
It's actually a unique way. When I came to Israel 4 years ago, what was amazing is I thought I had another position. Someone had introduced me to a rabbi here who was Israeli and was looking to expand his educational programs to America, both in a virtual format and also in a face-to-face format. He wanted to travel. He wanted to do more of his educational model in the States. So someone said, oh, this would be perfect. You're American and you're looking to bring your work here to Israel and you need an Israeli, because I'm an American. So I didn't know the legal system here or how organizations work. So I thought this job was secure. And when I walked, it was like a gentleman's handshake, for lack of a better word, which we all know intellectually we should never adhere to, but we do it anyway on faith. Yep. So the name of the organization was Emunah, which means faith. It was called the Emunah Learning Center. So I thought, okay, great. I have this position. I got off the plane. Things just didn't happen the way I hoped. So I said this wasn't going to work out, and I left. And for 3 months, I didn't know what I was going to do, honestly, Victoria. But what happened was someone knew that I was a grant writer and a strategic planner, and they had heard that Emunah Israel, World Emunah, the development arm of Emunah Israel, this nonprofit organization that's one of the largest humanitarian aid workers here, needed someone. So I went and thank God I got the position. What's amazing is that about 4 or 5 months later, I literally woke up, I had this epiphany that God wanted me here, because the other organization was also called Emunah. It was the Emunah Educational Center, and here Emunah. So I knew it was like God saying, okay, Ruthie, I wanted you at Emunah, but I had to get you through a back end, but you're here. So,
isn't that
I don't know
amazing?
if that makes sense to you.
Oh, it totally makes sense. I've had experiences like that. This may sound sacrilegious, but my husband once said God was, in my situation, sort of like a used car salesman, sort of drawing me in on false pretenses, but really he knew where I belonged in certain areas. So that is a great story. Now, I know that there are unique tensions in Israel. You know, it's a tiny little nation, fits into our Lake Winnipeg here. We often say that. That's how small it is. And it's predominantly one race religion, the only Jewish state in the world. But there are some unique tensions and struggles found in the society. And I'm sure that the influx of immigration from all over the world plays a part. Can you tell us about how you see that and how that you're helping in that situation?
I'll do my best. First of all, it's interesting when most people perceive that Israel is one race. We are a Jewish country, but what's very unique about the Jewish nation is that we are people from all over the world. So we are not one race in terms of our skin color. We're extremely diverse, and actually in Israel, the population is over 60% either Ethiopian or from Far Eastern descent or Spanish descent, which makes them not Caucasian. Okay, they and a lot of people don't realize that. It's very interesting. When I actually moved here, I didn't realize the diversity, and it was amazing because even just being on the bus, you sit around. Not only are you sitting with Ethiopians, and you could be sitting with somebody from Iran or Iraq that is Jewish by birth, or his or her ancestry is, but you're also sitting with Muslims and Arabs, and we are all normally sitting very nicely, interacting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it can be really beautiful. Unfortunately, there are some tensions. There are tensions both within the Jewish community itself, and that has to do with the fact that interpretations of how both people see Israel on a political level versus a religious level. So, you know, I don't know how much everyone follows the distinction between what is called modern day Zionism. Like we all say we're Zionistic, whether we're Jewish Zionistic or Christian Zionist, we're all supporting the land of Israel. But the reality is political Zionism is very different than religious Zionism. So when you have a lot of very Orthodox people here who people perceive are not Zionistic, in reality, they're very Zionistic because they pray for Zion every single day. All of our prayers, all their prayers talk about it at least 18, 20 times in a prayer session, if you will. And but they're looking for the land to be more religious in its observance and not secular. The original Zionists that started the modern day Israel, even going back to Herzl, who I have a tremendous respect for him and his people from that when they started the Zionist movement 100 years ago, the reality is they were looking for a political asylum for the Jewish people, a place of safe haven.
Absolutely.
And then they had to look and realize God gave us this land. This could be the safe haven. But the struggle from a Jewish point of view then is the secular, more socialistic aspect of Zionism versus the biblical religious appreciation of what Zionism is supposed to be and what the land of Israel is supposed to be for the Jewish people.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it's a very good answer, and it really helps people, I think, to understand the nature of the different worldviews in spite of being a Jewish nation. But as you say, everything I've heard about the founding people being socialist, you know, and so forth, not necessarily religious, but they also say that it couldn't have happened without God. God is in this, and
there's no question. I would 99% of all Israelis, and 99% is a pretty good number, believe 100% that this is the Jewish homeland that was given to us as a gift by God, and that on many levels our return to Israel is only the beginning. You know, we're fulfilling the prophecy that is meant to be, but we are privileged. Those of us who are living in this time are privileged to be a part of this. And so again, you can be a very secular, more socialistic Zionist Jew in Israel, but there's no question, everyone knows that we would not be here without God's help.
Absolutely. All the holidays are biblical holidays. It's amazing. Now, Ruth, I'm just going to move on to, do you just help Jewish children, or are you also helping Arab, Druze, other parts of the society in Israel?
The mission was started and is still sustained as a Jewish organization, helping Jewish children and families out of despair and out of poverty and out of dysfunction. However, there are some of our programs, again, we would never, God forbid, discriminate. So if there's our daycare centers, for instance, we have subsidized daycare centers throughout the country, approximately 125 daycare centers. And daycare centers clearly serve the need of young children. You know, babies, infants, all the way to 3 years old are a part of the daycare center system in Israel. If you're living in a community and you want to attend an Emunah daycare center, yes, it's open to everybody. And we do have a few of them that are more diverse communities. Again, many of the communities are, you know, more Jewish or more religious or more secular, but there are, as certainly I'm sure you've been following the news now, you know that there are definitely about a half a dozen very mixed communities, and they always lived very nicely.
Yes.
And those kids, there are definitely in some of those communities, Arab children, Christian and Muslim Arab children, and yes, some of the Druze.
Very interesting, and I think that's a great, again, a really helpful explanation about the complexities of you know, people wanting to follow their faith. Then it doesn't necessarily work to be mixed, even if it's open to everybody all the time. But I was going to say there are many non-faith-based humanitarian organizations in Israel, but how does your faith, as a woman of the book, a woman who derives your inspiration from Scripture and your direction, how does it play a large part in motivating you in this kind of work?
So first of all, Emunah itself, the Emunah Israel organization, is built on Torah value and on biblical law. So even though people from all backgrounds may attend any of our programs, and that all of them are Torah based. So what that means is, let's just say you're in a daycare center, your kids are going to have a Friday Shabbat party. They're going to be preparing. There's going to be a little, what we call an ima, a little mommy, you know, who gets dressed up as the mother, and a little abba, a little daddy. And they're going to make the blessings that are done traditionally. And the class has a special, you know, party for Shabbat and everything. That these children, most of them go home and still observe that at home. But the whole idea is to educate and to keep the faith going. And it was a very conscientious choice when Emunah started. One, what the name was, to believe, to have faith that God would continue to sustain the Jewish people, and was to also carry on that faith. So whether it's our high schools, our counseling centers, everything is faith-based from that point of view, though individuals have the right to pick and choose what they're going to do. For myself personally, there's no question, I feel like I have come home. I mean, when I came here, again, you heard, like, I wasn't exactly sure that I had the job, and then I wasn't sure. Historically, my whole employment I've always worked in the Jewish communal work, whether it was through Federation, education as a teacher, an outreach coordinator. Jewish continuity is critical to me, and being here in Israel and working for Emunah helps me to maintain that. And it's truly a blessing, honestly. I love my job, and
it's obvious.
What more can I say?
It's obvious that you love your job, and you're just, you know, your passion is clear, and your warmth, and that's so important. And I was just going to say that you have poured yourself out for the marginalized, the weak, and I know that you have been a blessing to many, but what do you receive in return?
I feel very strongly that I receive the blessings, both that God has kind of like rained on me, so to speak, by being able to be a part of an organization that helps people in need, you know, and the abused and the neglected and the people that are just calling out for help. It's that alone is a blessing. So it's just very, very fulfilling. And what I get in return is the opportunity to do these mitzvot, to do these good deeds, and to know that whatever I may be doing, whatever projects, whatever fundraising we're doing, that we know it's helping to sustain these people. Whether it's campaigns, it's interesting. Just I want to share a little bit. I have met some of the survivors that have been helped through Emunah, and this past year, as we all know, COVID has been very destructive emotionally on everybody globally. It's but clearly, I think we can all imagine that if you have been a survivor of any type of abuse, or certainly of the Holocaust, that you're older, you're elderly, you're in your late 80s or 90s, and there's nobody around, and then thank God we were able to provide the food and to provide some type of entertainment, even if it was from a distance. Just seeing the tears in these people's eyes, there's no greater reward.
Yes, I had the privilege of giving a gift to a Holocaust survivor. As you know, Bridges for Peace also supports and helps them, and it was one of the highlights of my life. We sang songs together, we played the piano, and again, just to have people know that they're still in a community that loves and supports them, where they have been so hated and neglected, and by the whole world, not just by Europe. Lastly, Ruth, I know you value Jewish-Christian relationships. Do you have any advice as to how Christians can better understand and we can serve each together as Jews and Christians?
I think we have to really start communicating better. The way, being a part of the Bridges for Peace family for me has certainly been an eye-opening opportunity and to develop friendships. I think there has to be a trust and honesty. And sometimes the trust is only developed by wanting to sit together and to talk and to share. And it's not always comfortable. There are, we all know that there are differences. There is a lot of healing that the Jewish community needs to do. I can only speak as a Jew, but there is a collective memory that's very painful for a lot of Jews that have happened over 2,000 years. And because of that, a lot of Jews are wary. They have absolutely nothing against the Christian faith from that point of view, but there's a wariness. And so the only way to break down those walls and build those bridges is to start working together, communicating where it's appropriate, doing some scriptural studying and sharing what our faith has to have. I know that many Christians have come to realize the Hebraic roots, so to speak, of the Christian community. That's something very new for many Christians. And it's been a blessing when I'm contacted, or we send out, we do programs like 5 Minutes of Faith and glossaries and that, to have like this eye-opening experience when people can realize we're really not that far apart. There's a lot we have in common, and let's build on that together. And since we all believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this is the best place to start.
And as you know, that's our job as Bridges for Peace, is to try to build those bridges, because we are aware of that horrible history of hurt, and part of our job is to actually share that with the Christian community. That is something that most Christians don't know. And it's not, we don't want to rub people's faces in it, but if you're not aware that your tribe, your people have caused hurt, then you really aren't aware of what's coming from the other side, how you're being viewed. And I think that exactly what you said, the commonality, we share the Hebrew scriptures. We both base our lives on those same scriptures, that and to focus on hearing and understanding, and not trying to push an agenda of any kind, and just trying to build relationships, real relationships. So Ruth, it has just been incredible to get to know you. And we talked earlier about the fact that Bridges for Peace and World Emunah did a challah bake. That's the braided bread that's on every Shabbat meal table. And together we shared that experience. And how can people find out more about the work of World Emunah?
They can, first of all, look at our website,
Okay.
which we have a few, but the easiest one is the www.emunahisrael.org. I think people will remember that.
Okay, well, thank you for this privilege of being with you, and we look forward to more sharing and more joint activities, we pray, and seeing you in Winnipeg, seeing you in Canada.
Likewise.
Okay.
And in Israel, we want to see you in Israel too.
Well, we want to be there, and we want to take people to Israel. So one of the stops.
When you do that, we will be happy to host you.
Fantastic.
That's one of the things Emunah would like to do.
So
maybe your listeners would like to know that should they come to Israel, and they come either as individuals or the mission, we can open, we have hosted at our residential care facilities lunches, programs, activities that people can come and interact with some of the kids.
Fantastic.
And people that are the recipients of Emunah's services. So,
that would be a treat. That would be a great privilege, and I look forward to doing that. Ruth, God bless you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of Women of the Book. To find out more about our guest or the ministry of Bridges for Peace, please follow these links or visit our website at bridgesforpeace.com.